In this video, I will cover the introduction of a UAP amendment for the forthcoming fiscal year 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, which is an annual piece of legislation that provides the budget for the Department of Defense. This amendment ties into all the talk that's been had recently about the implementation of immunity for witnesses of the UAP issue, including those working in legacy UAP programs within, for example, aerospace companies such as Lockheed Martin. And the more time that has passed, frankly, the more I find it likely such programs exist and that will come to light as part of the disclosure process. But before we dive into that, I want to share two clips with you that take a look at the proposition of USOs, unidentified submerged objects, that are technologically more advanced than any known technology on our planet. A USO is ultimately a UAP that has submerged into the water if we are to take seriously the reports that these machines are truly transmedium in their capabilities.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas?
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed session, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. During today's UAP hearing, a congressman asked whether the Defense Department has the capability to monitor for UAPs underwater. The congressman was told this was a matter for a closed session. So I was hoping to reframe his question. Is DOD looking for UAPs underwater?
I'm not going to even attempt that one, Jeff. If it's a matter for a closed session with Congress, I think you can understand why we wouldn't be talking about that from the podium.
One thing I've learned by studying what I perceive is the disclosure process is there are two primary elements that those currently employed in the national security apparatus or formerly employed in the national security apparatus do not want to broach whatsoever. And that is underwater sensors and satellite systems. If you watch these people being asked about it, they get real uptight. And I ascertain the reason they get uptight about it is twofold. Number one, these sensors are extremely classified, and any insights into their capabilities would be highly valuable for adversaries. And number two, if they talk about it at all, even without giving details, I think they probably fear that some of their facial expressions might give away some realities of these systems, and foreign governments are going to watch their facial expressions to see if they can glean anything. So they don't even want to talk about it because they don't want even the most tiniest assessment to be made by foreign governments when it comes to these extremely classified and sensitive sensor systems. And I can understand that. That makes sense to me. So just weeks after the first UFO hearing in 54 years, this dropped on June 23rd from Marco Rubio's Senate.gov website. Title, press release, Rubio Warner applaud committee approval of Intel Authorization Act. Later in the press release, it is written, background, the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023 authorizes funding and ensures that the intelligence community has the resources, personnel, and authorities it needs to protect our country and inform decision makers while under robust congressional oversight, including the following key areas. And one of those key areas stands out in a very big way, and that is enhancing oversight of IC and Department of Defense collection reporting on unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena, and increasing transparency and promoting efforts to reform the declassification process. Now that's really interesting that they would have chose that terminology to put into the legislation. As Twitter user Daniel Miller very shrewdly pointed out recently, the UAP hearings took place on May 17th. And only weeks later, in June of 2023, in the language that the members of Congress put into the legislation to refer to UAP, aerospace undersea phenomena. Not just aerospace phenomena, but aerospace undersea. Now, I don't know what members on these congressional committees have been privy to during their classified briefings. But whatever they were told about the data that's been collected in the ocean on UAP seems to have led to them being very precise in how they define this phenomena, underscoring that it is not exclusively an aerospace phenomena, but it's an aerospace undersea phenomena, giving credence to the idea we are dealing with transmedium technology. I can't say for sure, but my analysis of what I've seen is that the data that the United States Navy has collected on USOs, unidentified submerged objects, is very high fidelity. I believe this is not a hypothesis. This is not a theory. This is not a speculation. But they know. They know there are objects in our oceans that far exceed all known technological capabilities. Technologies detected moving so fast underwater, the most advanced torpedo or submarine could not even hold a candle to. On July 17th, the Debrief.org, which is a news outlet, published the article titled New Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Reporting Procedures Outlined in Amendment to Fiscal Year 2023 NDAA. And they outline beautifully what this all really means. And I'm going to give you a short excerpt from the article, and I'll also link to the article in the description below if you want to read it in its totality. Outlook. What the new UAP legislation means for 2023 and beyond. In effect, this legislation would allow for witnesses or personnel who have information or data at higher classification level, or SAP, that's Special Access Program, to provide members of UAPTF or the office with data that UAPTF are not cleared for or read into. Additionally, by doing so, witnesses or personnel who would otherwise be breaching their NDA by disclosing information will no longer be found to be in breach and therefore are free from prosecution or sanctions. A hypothetical situation that may arise from this could be as follows. An analyst working with an intelligence agency, NRO, NGA, CIA, NSA, etc., has data relating to UAP that is within a sensitive compartmentalized information SCI program or Special Access Program SAP that the UAPTF or the office members are not read into and therefore do not have access to. With the passing of the legislation discussed in the proposed NDAA amendment, that agency analyst will be able to disclose the data to UAPTF or the office members without fear of violating their non-disclosure agreement or reprisal from their chain of command or employer. The legislator's intent is clearly put forth in this latest piece of drafted law contained within the Gallagher Amendment. Congress wants data shared with those tasked with investigating UAP, and there will be no more hiding behind security classifications or NDAs. Daniel Miller of Twitter highlights a very important component of the proposed amendment, so I'm going to read it to you. A detail I've seen overlooked in conversations regarding this proposed amendment is the language directing the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of the Director of Homeland Security, and heads of other agencies to search records for all UAP-related non-disclosure agreements and make them available to this new office as well as committees. Wow. On July 7th, Chris Mellon shares a tweet with a link to the Debrief article we've discussed. New language proposed for inclusion in the 2023 NDAA aims to ensure transparency about information the Pentagon collects on unidentified aerial phenomena. And he writes, this should help to ensure that those charged with compiling UAP information finally gain access to important UAP data that is still being withheld by the USAF, United States Air Force. On July 8th, I responded to a Jeremy Corbell tweet where he wrote, given rock-solid assurance of no retaliation and the right setting, there is an army of UAP knowledgeable individuals primed and ready to testify in closed-door briefings and some in open briefings. And I reply and write, I want to see this happen. I want to see this happen. If there's nothing to see here, fine. But that assessment needs to be tested. This proposed amendment is a manifestation of the immunity talk that we have discussed in the past. When we were discussing it, it was a rumor. Now it is verifiable that this kind of legislation is absolutely on the table. And hopefully it will get passed. And inevitably, we will have more hearings. Now, that tweet I just shared with you, I think that sentiment is really, really, really important because there are so many people saying that this is all a nothing burger. This is all just a mind virus of sorts, gullible analysis, low information zone. This isn't really real the way you think it is. This is just humanity indulging in errors they are prone to over and over again over 70 plus years. That kind of rhetoric dies the moment we find out that there are legacy UFO programs that have been around for decades, funded in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over many, many decades, and have absolute smoking gun evidence of this phenomenon. Technology of unknown origin, transmedium machines that operate with absolute impunity. Nobody knows where they come from. Nobody knows who's behind the wheel. The fact of the matter is, and I'm being very frank right here, if this phenomena exists, those programs exist, in my opinion. I don't even think it's possible, and maybe I'm going too far, but I don't even think it's possible that the US government at any point in its history could know this phenomena exists and yet has not been studying it. That's not how the mental psychology of people in the national security apparatus operate. They may have wanted to put it deep, deep underground. They may not have wanted to broach it, which is obviously the case because it's been insulated for so long. But to say that they would just let it be and wouldn't employ a concerted effort to get to the bottom of what's going on, to me is nearing implausible. There are key things they would want to understand about this phenomenon, and they would not stop until they could. And I don't know how much intelligence they've gained on this. It's all classified. It's all insulated. But they would want to know, okay, what exactly are the capabilities of these machines? Is there any way that we could glean knowledge about how they operate and therefore work on creating our own machines of warfare, if you will, that can employ the same capabilities as what we're observing? Now, I'm not saying that what we're observing is machines of warfare, but obviously that technology could be applied to machines of warfare. They would want to know, they would want to gather intelligence on who is behind the wheel, where do they come from. They would want to know their agenda. Obviously, if you are tasked with national security and intelligence gathering, there's just no way. There's no way that programs would not be instituted to figure this out when that is like the bread and butter of the national security apparatus, the Department of Defense. Yeah, they may have long ago insulated it so well that the Congress doesn't get briefed on it. Presidents may not even get briefed on it, potentially. They just put it completely underground. But like I said, if this phenomena exists, those programs absolutely exist somewhere and are funded somehow, point blank. So it all comes down to the hearings and the immunity and what's moving forward right now. If this truly is a nothing burger, then in future hearings, you're going to get people that are going to be questioned by congressional committees, In some instances, they may have to do it under oath with penalty of imprisonment if they lie. And they're either going to say there's something there or they're going to say there's nothing there. It really is simple arithmetic. Now, a skeptic may be like, well, even if there's something, they say there's something there, doesn't mean there is. Well, yeah, that's correct. Thank you for that analysis. I appreciate that. That's correct. But what it does probably point to, very likely, is that they're going to want to see some of that evidence. They're going to want to see what our taxpayers have paid for with these legacy programs. What have they gleaned and learned about the phenomena? Because the congressional oversight committees, that's part of their job, to know what's going on in this arena. So this idea that people would testify that, yes, there are other UAP programs. Yes, we have much better evidence than we've let on. Let's say they say that. And then that's it? No, of course that's not the way it would work. The Congress would be like, maybe in classified setting, but they would want to see the evidence. I mean, that's what they've been pursuing now for years. That's why we had a hearing on May 17th, the first one in 54 years. So the bottom line is this truth embargo, if you want to call it that, is starting to erode, or there never was a truth embargo. There never really was a there. And when we have our future congressional hearings, that will come to light. Period. All comes down to the hearings. I've said it before, and I will say it again. It all comes down to the hearings. What are people that work in the Pentagon, or the CIA, or the NSA, or the NRO, or the Navy, or all these different agencies who have seen the classified data on UFOs? What are they going to say about UFOs? If people come forward that have worked in legacy UFO programs, what are they going to say about those legacy UFO programs? Under oath, under the potential of being in prison for lying. I mean, it is what it is. And I think I'm intellectually honest, or I try to be, because we're all flawed. But if there were hearings and people were asked questions and it was basically a big nothing burger, I would not say, oh, they're just lying. The secret just goes so many more layers deep. I wouldn't say that. I would say, well, dang. This is evidence, significant, weighty evidence, that what people thought about the UFO phenomena, such as myself, was just maybe wrong. And at the very minimum, there's less justification to put stock in that interpretation. It all comes down to the hearings. You know what I think is going to happen? I think that not only are people going to be asked questions, sometimes under oath, and even if it wasn't under oath, like it's not good to lie. Like that's going to come back to haunt you whether you're under oath or not. If the Department of Defense ends up looking like they're lying, it's terrible public relations. But my point is that the hypothesis that there's nothing here needs to be tested. If you are a skeptic or a debunker, and you know what? All of us are truly skeptics. Let's keep it real. Unless you're like a UFO believer that believes everything, we're all skeptics. Some of us skeptics interpret evidence different than other skeptics. Like, I'll give you an example. Mick West is what I would call a debunker on steroids. I mean, there is a tweet of him debunking something. He called it pre-debunking, prior to any evidence even getting released. And he may say, well, I was just having fun. I don't know what his rebuttal would be, but to me, that's a window into his psychology. Any person who strives to be intellectually honest is a skeptic. You have to be skeptical. The question is, when you look at the past 70 plus years of this issue and the myriad of witnesses that have come forward, many of these incidents have been highly corroborated. Very distinct patterns emerging from disparate sources over and over again. Does that have weight? Some skeptics believe no. Some skeptics believe yes. And then there are believers that believe everything. Don't get it twisted. We're all, if we're doing our job, we are all skeptics. In the vernacular over time, in this discussion, skeptic has sort of transformed into, I don't believe in UFOs. And believer has transformed into, I believe in UFOs. But as with most things, it's of course much more nuanced than that. Now, I haven't posted in a while. I was having sleep difficulties. But I'm trying something new. And prior to not posting for a while, I went 2 months posting like crazy. And my full intention is to pick that up again. I'm going to try. So sorry for not posting in a while. I apologize for that. But just know that I'm getting back on that saddle, baby. I'm getting back on that saddle and I'm going to war. I'm just saying that I can just see some people say, ooh, he said war. It's violent. Come on, man. It's a metaphor. It's come on, relax. Give me some slack. Going to war in the sense that I'm going to exert effort. Not going in the war that I'm going to hurt people, just in case someone on UFO Twitter gets all fake outraged over a mere metaphor. I mean, have you ever played sports in your life? Not that there's anything wrong with not being into sports, but like, I recently heard an NBA player say, I enjoy going to war with another player. Yeah, it's not violence. He enjoys competition, concerted effort, focus. Pushing forward. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. But anyways, I apologize for not having published more frequently, but hopefully the stretch of time that I went not publishing becomes a rarity and hopefully even never happens again. I'm going to try. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You could become a patron. You could become a YouTube member. You could even give me a one-time donation. All of those possibilities can be accessed in the description box below, or you could just slap a like on this bad boy and I will appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.